Welcome back to episode 4 of Untangling Braid. This is everybody's favorite world. We're going to be talking about World 4, Time and Place. So let's just go through our usual routine. We'll start with the text. Visiting his parents' home for a holiday meal, Tim felt as though he had regressed to those long ago years when he lived under their roof, oppressed by their insistence on upholding strange values which, to him, were meaningless. Back then, bickering would erupt over drops of gravy spilt onto the tablecloth. Escaping, Tim walked in the cool air toward the university he'd attended after moving out of his parents' home. As he distanced himself from that troubling house, he felt the embarrassment of childhood fading into the past. But now he stepped into all the insecurities he'd felt at university, all the panic of walking a social tightrope. Tim only felt relieved after the whole visit was over, sitting back home in the present, steeped in contrast. He saw how he'd improved so much from those old days. This improvement, day by day, takes him ever closer to finding the princess. If she exists, she must. She will transform him and everyone. He felt on his trip that every place stirs up an emotion, and every emotion invokes a memory, a time and a location. So couldn't he find the princess now, tonight, just by wandering from place to place and noticing how he feels? A trail of feelings, of awe and inspiration, should lead him to that castle, in the future. Her arms enclosing him, her scent fills him with excitement, creates a moment so strong he can remember it in the past. Immediately, Tim walked out his door, the next morning, toward whatever the new day held. He felt something like optimism. So the mechanic of World 4, of course, is that time and space are intermingled, and we've sort of collapsed a dimension, and of course the text is about, in all the previous worlds I've talked about how there's sort of the sci-fi version and the metaphor version, like the relationship where you're rewinding the mistakes versus the relationship where just forgiveness is easy and perfect. But here, I guess there's almost no way to put the literal sci-fi version into words, and the game is so, the simulation of the game world is so striking that the puzzle levels themselves kind of take on the burden of the sci-fi aspect, and then we have just the books carrying out the kind of metaphorical sense, which is a very strong sense, unlike the others, which these kind of things about magic or forgiveness, the association of time and place is super strong. All of our analogies to time in language are all based on things coming and going, things being far off, things being way behind us, things being coming at us fast. They're all distance and velocity metaphors. So we have some kind of backstory about Tim's upbringing and university days, a little bit of autobiographical detail for this otherwise very nondescript little guy in a tie. But then, and we have the feeling that we all have, it's a very relatable feeling of seeing how one has changed over time and feeling that one has improved. Maybe we're immune to noticing the ways that we've gotten worse over time. But then we have all this kind of a curveball about the princess. So previously in World 2, we got this simple story of like, the princess walked away long ago, Andor was stolen by a horrible monster, and so we're trying to get her back. Then in World 3, it was like, whoa, wait, like, I left the princess, and then, like, what's up with that? And now in World 4, maybe the princess never existed, or doesn't exist. She's like an article of religious faith. This is the beginning of her transformation into this sort of like divine force. He like just has this scent of awe and inspiration, that there's this transformative enlightenment, creating kind of perfect castle in the future, and this phrase, she's in the future, but the moment is so strong he can remember it in the past. So this is all kind of the muddled time world that that the kind of princess and Tim live in. All right, so we'll hop into the first world and see all about how Braid's most spectacular simulation unfolds. We've got the pit again. This is the first of many like repetitions of level design, where the game is referencing using like a similar structure, and then similar level structure, but with totally different mechanics to change the nature of the puzzle. And the fact that it has to be solved in such a different way just emphasizes the helps the player understand, I suppose, because if the level was totally different, you'd think, oh well, of course it's to be solved in a different way because it's a different shape. But seeing a very similar shape then puts the focus on the fact that it's the mechanic that's making the difference to the required solution. So immediately we notice this bizarre thing. We have this kind of harsh lullaby music that stops and everything freezes when I'm not moving. Of course, when we're moving left to right, then time's proceeding at its normal rate. So we have these kind of two time layers going on, because separate from that we can still pull our rewinding, and you know the way that plays in with the magic green items is there's a few differences between the sort of rewind time and the back and forth walking across the screen. But at any rate, so this is similar to our previous adventure in the pit. We had to come down here, get a green key, and then rewind our way out. Here we can we can't access the key. We need the Goomba to get the key. So that's accomplished by just walking far enough forward. Of course, we can't just wait there for the Goomba because he's frozen in time. Now we can come down there and grab. This scene has this beautiful transition of the art styles, of course, from the lushness of World 3 into this sort of like austere, stony, ancient ruins of World 4. It's winter in the background, right? We've gone from summer to spring to winter, kind of a procession of the seasons going backwards. We have these harsh, snowy mountains and you know, cumulus snowy clouds. And one fun thing about the art style here is that there's more room for all these little glyphs. So this thing that I'm standing on top of right now is called a Stevinus diagram, and it's one of the first clues in World 4. Braid starts to get a little bit more explicit about some of its kind of esoteric physicsy themes. So the Stevinus diagram here was something like out of the medieval times, when people were first starting to understand you know, geometry and force and those kinds of things, before Newton, maybe around the time of Galileo. And this, you have to imagine all these balls as being weighted together, and they're on a string. They're like a necklace, and they can be placed around an inclined plane. And it was a sort of a counter example, like an example of something you might imagine. This would be like a perpetual motion machine, right? Because on this side you have, or on the right side, you have 5 balls that are resting on the slantwise direction of the triangle, and then they start to hang off at the bottom. And then on this side you have 3 balls that are hanging vertically down. Now you might think the 5 balls are obviously heavier than 3, and so these should kind of roll off to the right and pull some of the 3 vertically upwards over the tip of the triangle, and then you know, it would start going around and around. But obviously it doesn't happen. You can drape a necklace across any kind of object, and it doesn't spontaneously start spinning around its holder. And today we know this is because when you add up the forces, right? So this side of the string is experiencing the weight of these 3 balls pressing directly downwards, but on this side, the weight of these 5 balls is pressing directly downwards into the block, and then the block is pushing back. That's why the balls don't fall directly through the object. The block is pushing back, but the block pushes back normal to the surface, and so you end up with a kind of a horizontal force involved, and but the vertical force on this side ends up being the same as just uh, the three balls there. So anyways, it's sort of like a Pythagorean theorem applied to real world physics, and then you do a little bit of vector math, and start understanding the sort of the ways that forces add together, the ways that velocities add together, and from there you're on the path to Galileo starting to understand the acceleration of objects, and Newton working out the theory of gravity and things like that. So this is a kind of like elementary, like first step on the path of like formalized physics understanding, and maybe that's also symbolic of the fact that this World 4 is where Braid starts. I mean, you need to start modeling the mechanics of what's going on more. With 3, you can kind of muddle through, and sometimes you get screwed over by something that's irreversible, and you don't quite understand why. But with the totally bizarre behavior of this x equals t time and place world, it starts calling more on your explicit ability to add together the velocities and think about things in that way. So let's continue. Jumpman. Another aspect of this art style of the world is that it's less flowery. I mean, look, we have like all these platforms just floating in midair. If you look carefully at the background, you see like there's a column here. There's like some slanted columns. It's supposedly some ancient ruin that's held up, but it's not an ancient ruin of any building in particular. Gone are all the like kind of rolling, inviting hills and like the nice flora. Everything has become sort of all about business of the puzzles, except of course that another theme of this area is that kind of childhood and the nostalgia of growing up in the parents' home, and the years at university. So this level with the Goombas rolling back and forth, of course, is just like the we have a little Donkey Kong idol up here, and this is imitating the back and forth motion of the original Mario Brothers arcade game, where you're running up this single screen. Donkey Kong is throwing these big barrels from behind. Here the Goombas are like the barrels that you've got to jump over, so it's a throwback to the platformers of old. But of course, you run into this scenario where once again we can't wait for our Goomba here. He's just stuck on this ledge. He's moving about as fast as we are. There's no way up on this side. So instead of a test of agility, which is this like tempting thing, all these guys are so fun to jump over, but instead we have to go for this sneaky option up the side, which also teaches something very bizarre, which is that you can only kill the Goombas in one direction, right? If you kill them going forward in time, then the moment after the bounce, you've gone to a moment after they've died. But if you kill the Goombas going backward in time, then as soon as you make the killing stomp, the next frame over, you've gone back to the time before they've died, and so you can kind of rack up a whole lot of bounces here with no penalty. Alright, so that's trouble. There we go. We have another can't wait for the Goomba moment. This little these clapper devices, the PD piranhas coming out of the pipes here. I've never really been an obstacle before because you've always just been able to wait unless there's some pressing time objective. But now time stopped flowing right as we pulled up to the gate. So it might as well just be a brick wall. Here we have another kind of funny. Now this level, unlike here, the game was just trolling us, making us want to go back and forth. And look at this, we can't. We have to be careful not to go back in time to the moment before we get the puzzle, because now it's been lost. So there's all kinds of wonderful consequences. At any rate, earlier, there's no need to actually go up and go past the zigzag here. But here, we have that zigzagging Donkey Kong-esque barrel dodging mechanic in real life. Fireball's going one way. We got to make a whole lot of jumps. Fireball's going the other way. The fireballs are essentially elongated because they're traveling right in our same direction of travel. So we've got to we have to run for much longer and take longer jumps. Boy. And this, of course, is another, just like killing the Goomba and then going back to the moment before it dies. If we try to unlock the door walking this way as time rewinds, then we'll unlock the door for a single frame and then push forward into the frame before it the frame before it was unlocked. So it'll slam back locked again. So the trick here is actually you gotta ignore this tempting door and run all the way up the outside. Just out of reach. So here we have more kind of perfect coincidences with the Goomba sitting just on top of the surface. We can change this by opening up more space for him to bounce around in. But now we ourselves can't. We'd like to be able to jump over here and get to the puzzle. The trick is we want to undo that lever. We want to have it both ways. Move the Goomba off base, but then also not be stuck underneath here. This would be impossible in the normal game mechanics, but here we have that phenomenon where the lever can switch without us touching it. If we just go back to the moment before it was switched in the X direction. So we'll flip that, and then a few Goomba bounces later, we're all set to hop on over. This is a similar situation. We need to bounce up here, lest we just be stuck in this useless little corridor. But we don't want this guy to die so early, because we need him to get that key. So instead, we've got to just jump on him late enough that we can go back a few frames and revive him, and then we can pick up that key. Fortunately, another interesting glyph here, we have musical notation etched into this rock. Of course, this game this world has this kind of jarring musical experience where the notes start and stop as we accelerate and decelerate. So it's actually kind of an ugly world to listen to, and this sort of the jarringness of this is I think befitting of the strangeness of this world in contrast to the friendliness of the time and forgiveness, the earlier worlds. This is where some of the real oddness comes in, and is an example of Braid being designed from the principles of the simulation to the puzzles, rather than taking the game mechanics and trying to just create puzzles that feel good. It's like World 4 is the best expression of Braid's desire to be like a sort of more rigorous version of that Italo Calvino thought experiment exploration, where in literature you're just writing about different cities, or you're writing about different ways that the world could be, but it's all just kind of words and dreams. Here there's like a real simulation of like, well, what would it be if your time and space dimensions were kind of collapsed into one. So that's the sort of harshness of music is a testament to that. But this glyph is also reminding us that, as I think I mentioned in an earlier video, sound and music in particular is one of the most intimate ways that we can connect to and sort of visualize time or experience time. You'd think, humans are always just experiencing the present moment, right? The past flies away as before we can grab hold of it. The future is yet unrealized, and yet we're constantly casting back with short-term memory. You have this sort of ability to kind of replay the sounds. Maybe you ignored what someone said, and then suddenly they're asking you a question, and you kind of reach back in your memory and piece together the words that are still sitting there and think, oh yeah, that's what they asked me, and then you're able to come up with an answer. There's a similar faculty in music that works in both directions, where we kind of keep that mental record of the time gone by, and also anticipate the notes to come. And we can do this on different scales, keeping track of both the micro variation from note to note and the overall paths of the music. So, I mean, I think the fact that Braid is all about time is one of the reasons why there's wall-to-wall music throughout this game, except when you're standing still or freezing time, and no music in The Witness, by contrast, where the sun hangs perpetually in the center of the sky. It's all about momentary conscious experience. There's a few puzzles in The Witness about slowly moving clouds and things like that, maybe just for the comedic value, but for the most part it's static and without music. It's one of my favorite levels, Hunt. So this is, of course, a total redux. There's no differences at all, really, between this and the previous Hunt level from the tutorial World 2. Except this, of course, if the player hasn't noticed by now, it's impossible to notice, not to notice here that the Goombas can only be clubbed forward in time, and very frustratingly, they come right back to life when we try and make it over to the far side of the screen, which we have to do in order to get up this ladder. And then we think, okay, well, that's not so bad. Maybe we can somehow, just restart from here. Except we've got to, go back to get these fellas, and then now we can't jump from that high vantage point here, so we've got to use our alternative trick of the jumping without killing, and then getting him on the final blow. We can get this guy, but now we can't even climb back up the ladder. And then, to the greatest of frustrations, in order to intersect with this Goomba, as we walk towards him, we're rewinding, so he's kind of moonwalking backwards. And every single one of those Goombas comes back to life. And so what we realize here is that you actually have to kill these Goombas from left to right, and not any kind of left to right, not left to right as they appear right now, but left to right as Tim crosses paths with them, kind of intersects with them, in this kind of collapsed time and space diagram. So we get our first Goomba, then we've got to get our second. Remember, we can't go down that ladder because we bring back the guy at the top, and then just from left to right we go. Oop. If we want to be nice, we could bring them all back. Movement by degrees. Here we have got a giant hobby horse up there, a kind of childhood symbol. Somewhere around here there's a bunch of like building blocks. Here right above us we have a motif of a little crawling baby turned into a small child, turned into a strong young man who grows a bunny. That's hilarious that the bunny's right on top of the man. Turned into a kind of overweight fella, into a guy with a cane. Having that another, just like the music progressing from left to right, the you know, course of a human life progressing through time. Now once again, there's a key over on the far left. We need the Goomba to fetch the key, so we got to get him across safely. Now we got to listen carefully and we can hear the sound of the key. There we go. Now let's see what that key is useful for. It looks like getting into that door right there. Alright, and then here's a similar trick, except that previously we had this easy mode situation where we had a Goomba that we can control the Goomba's motions, and then the PD Piranhas are coming up independent of our actions, because they have that green sparkliness, which makes them immune not only to rewind but also to the time and space unification of World 4. But now we have, up here in the corner, we have the reverse situation where the PD Piranhas are the ones that we control, and it's the Goombas that happily go forward with their green magic. Oh. Wait for this guy to come around, and he's our ticket to the puzzle. Now, I'm pretty sure that you can use a Goomba to bounce up here. There might be some kind of star. No star. Oh, we gotta figure this one. Oh, of course. You just gotta be dead off screen. Alright, so there's our first star of the game. I'll see if I have to edit that out of the video for being too tedious. But yeah, so stars, I don't plan to cover all the stars because a lot of them do take a really long time to get, and they mostly are kind of elaborations on the previous puzzle mechanics. If you guys want to see a bunch of star-inspired advanced braidery, then you can watch the videos that I'll be uploading interspersed with these official Untangling Braid videos, namely the More Now Than Ever mod videos covering my fan sequel mod anthology of all the greatest hit puzzles from a bunch of Braid mods that were created by various community members. But the stars, of course, are an important part of Braid. They're a surprising part of Braid for many people. And you see, previously the screen was locked to this. The screen was locked around there, but now that I've hopped up there and gotten the stars, it's sort of like broken through the lock, and I can see higher up. But anyways, this. Let's get out of the sound of dying Goombas for a moment. There's no saving it. So the presence of the stars is interesting because otherwise this game is so formally is always constrained in this little box, right? And all of the stars are located totally outside the bounds of, well, except the dumb one that's in the house, which is outside the bounds in some other senses, like it's in the painting, it's off the edge of the painting, it's in the house, which is kind of outside the bounds of these thought experiment worlds because it's coming up a meta level into the real world, blah blah blah. So the stars represent, you know, they're outside the box. You'd have to really, they're a reward for players who ideally, I mean, most people find out about the stars through some kind of walkthrough or something, but presumably the first people to discover the stars in August 2008 when Braid was released, they would have been really experimenting, kind of pushing the bounds of the game, using, you know, figuring out advanced tricks that you could use to you know, exploit the mechanics. That spirit, Braid wants to reward that spirit because it has, it's important for, it's that same spirit of kind of scientific exploration, right? I mean, it's the I already referenced earlier how the progression of the game goes from this open, inviting exploration at the beginning, where like everything, you can just walk through all the worlds, you see all this amazing new stuff, you get to have all this delight, to at the end of the game it forces you to get every single puzzle piece, and so you're like down to those last couple puzzles that you can't figure out, and working on any little inconsistency or theory that you might have, trying to experiment, doing a kind of more formal and slow-paced and rigorous exploration of the game's mechanics, getting into that scientific frame of mind, you know, as a progression from that kind of intuitive exploratory frame of mind. The stars also want to kind of pay homage to that feeling, or simulate that feeling of trying to figure out how to, you know, how to do more than what seems like it should be allowed, you know, how to follow an idea that seems crazy, yeah, they're an interesting aspect of the game. But for learning how to get all the stars and things, you can follow one of any number of internet walkthroughs and hints. We won't go through them all here. So here we have that same ferry the Goomba past the Gaia situation, except it's not fast enough for us to do normally, even if we didn't have this awkward ladder in the way. But fortunately, we have our wonderful encounter with the clouds in World 4, perhaps my absolute favorite thing in Braid, as you can see from my mod, which I joked might as well be named More Clouds Than Ever. So these clouds, they're moving. If we just focus on the direction, while we're moving forward, the lower layer of clouds is moving with us and moving forward just a little slower than we do. The top layer of clouds is moving against our direction of motion and moving quite a bit faster than we do. So you might think that, yeah. So the clouds moving in our direction, right? I mean, it's just like walking on an escalator. Or a moving walkway at an airport. You take a step forward, but the clouds are also moving forward, and so that pulls you forward even more. So you get a kind of magnified motion, and that extra speed lets us whoosh that Goomba across, hopefully. There we go. It's that same trick, but we don't want to walk through the door in the wrong direction. So we've got to progress, I guess, against these clouds, which in the going up on the down elevator way are slowing down our motion, but then therefore putting the whole world into slow motion. And we'll see actually, so on a flat surface, Tim can move at normal speed, and thus the world accelerates at normal speed. On a surface that's moving forward at up to Tim's normal speed, then it accelerates, puts the whole game world into fast motion. If the clouds are moving at exactly Tim's normal speed, you'd think that would just cause the game world to go at 2x speed, because right, for every step you take, the cloud moves forward a step. But the thing is that if the clouds are moving at exactly normal speed, then at exactly Tim's speed, then it's not a convergent series anymore, right? So if these clouds are going at say half my speed forward, I take a step, so time advances a step. The clouds also move forward by half a step because they're going half the normal speed. Then time advances by half a step just by me being dragged along by the clouds and not taking any action of my own. Then that causes the clouds to move forward another quarter of a step. Time moves forward a quarter of a step. The clouds move forward by an eighth of a step, and so on. But at least it ends. It's it being a convergent series. But if the clouds travel at Tim's exact speed, then it's not a convergent series, and so there's like infinite speed, which you can also see while playing around in my mod more now than ever. If you set a cloud extremely close to Tim's speed, walking speed, then he'll actually zip across the entire game screen instantaneously, surfing on this little perfect cloud. Yeah, conversely, the clouds that go against you, they just put the world into more and more slow-mo. Even this incredibly fast cloud that zips across the screen, we'll see, come down here to see just how fast it is. And you can make these much faster if you like, even if the clouds are going at an absolutely tremendous, ridiculous speed. They always just put the world into a deeper and deeper slow-mo. So then that might raise the question, okay, so, if a cloud moving forward at normal speed accelerates the world sort of to infinite speed, then what happens if the clouds are moving a little faster than Tim, right? You could perfectly imagine this big zippy cloud, heading in the other direction, and the answer is that it is really buggy, and it sort of like creates a kind of time paradox and starts dragging Tim backwards for every step he takes forwards. There's a reason that none of those clouds show up in this game, but it's a lot of fun to be had in the mods. Anyways, clouds, they're just the greatest. Fickle Companion, perhaps another famous puzzle. A lot of the best puzzles in Braid are in this world. So previously, all the keys we've encountered have been the shiny green kind, which means that they stick to us. They're not affected by all this back and forth shenanigans. But now we have a key of the ordinary kind, which means that we can pick it up going forward in time, just like how we can kill a Goomba going forward in time. But going backwards in time, we actually drop the key. You see how it's kind of just hovering alongside us. We can climb ladders, which are vertical. If we jump forward, everything's normal. But if we jump backwards, the key flashes down to the earth, retracing its own previous steps rather than staying in our possession. So here we have just a simple case of taking the key to this lock, but the key doesn't want to come along for just this very teasingly short, brief journey. But there's the key down there. This is one of those famous moments that really forces people to try and think and understand the mechanics of the detailed simulation and really understand what's going on in this game. So the trick is this Goomba here, down here, can grab the key, and because he has that magic greenness, he can carry it backwards. So we're going to need, this is going to be like rugby, right, where you can only pass the ball backwards. We're going to need to use that Goomba to ferry our key for us. Oh. I'm already messing up. There we go. This is oh. Grab it from him back here, and now we can just proceed purely forward to unlock this. So that's the original Fickle Companion puzzle. There's another star up here, by the way. You can bounce on this Goomba and end up up top. This puzzle is another interesting one. This is about the difference between rewinding versus versus just walking back and forth. Now, there's a couple obvious differences, such as in the pit. You can rewind your way out of a fall, but you can't walk your way out of a fall. You've got to actually, the vertical gravity is not playing along in the way that the horizontal time is. But another aspect of this is that we can unlock this door, and the key is broken, and there's no hope of ever getting a key to go in here. And then we can run back outside to get our key back, but we can give it to this Goomba, but that's not really any use if we can't use the key to get back in here. But by combining the walking back and forth and the rewinding ability, we can rewind ourselves while the key. Now, so you might think, oh, why didn't the key get rewound? Well, it's being held by the held magically by that Goomba, so his just as he's able to carry it backwards through the rewind with shift, just as he's able to carry it backwards, from right to left in this world, he is also able to maintain possession of it during moments of rewind. Fortunately, that's a green sparkly puzzle, so we don't have to worry about maintaining possession of that as we go back. Oh, let's see if we can get that. Let's just see if we can get that star. There we go. Right up here. Okay. But this is a little complicated. Okay, so this involves actually bouncing a Goomba up here as well. It's not enough just for ourselves to bounce up here. And then there's a similar kind of thing. We bounce the Goomba up, we give the Goomba the key. The Goomba is able to carry the key backwards. See, we've already lost the key due to stepping backwards. We take the key from here, go up here, unlock this, use that same rewind trick that we used to rescue the key down there. So we walk through here, pull that lever, rewind out so that the key is revived. Give the Goomba the key again. The Goomba is able to carry it all the way back here. We grab the key. We take it forward, just like in the original Fickle Companion puzzle, and then wander all the way out here, and then we're able to claim our star. But we won't be doing that today. Alright, so we've come with the iconic Fickle Companion puzzle. We've come to the end of World 4. Down here we have a big block with an Aleph 1. This is a part of a notation for infinities, I think invented by, who is that guy? Campbell or Candle or something, Gregor. I'm not familiar with my infinities. But Aleph 1 is something like the, what is it? It's like Aleph naught is the set of all the natural numbers, like just the integers. And then Aleph 1 is the set of all the, all possible numbers, the decimals and the fractions and everything, all the little fragments, of which it's been said that the natural numbers, the infinity of the natural numbers is smaller, like the infinity of stars in a night sky, and then the infinity of all the fractions and the decimals and things is like the infinity of the space between the stars. Yeah. So of course another physics reference, just like the Stevinus. This is kind of like getting into like fancy advanced math that even I can't properly remember and certainly couldn't prove anything about, as opposed to the first building block of the sort of Stevinus, like the beginnings of geometry, and in the idea that maybe you could apply math to figure things out about the physical universe. Of course, we'll have to trespass on our castle since we can only move forward. Alrighty, so there's your world 4. We get 2 worlds here lighting up, giving us a little bit of non-linearity. I mean, they're numbered, so most people probably jump right into world 5, but on the other hand, if you're really eager to enter doors, world 6 is the first one you come across. We're going to tackle them in order in future videos, but that's an interesting an interesting signal from Braid that there are the worlds aren't linear. It's not a linear plot sequence. We're getting totally contradictory stories about the princess being like a transcendent signal from the future, the princess being someone we left behind long ago, the princess being someone who was stolen by a monster, and these are all different perspectives and different mechanical explorations. And so, these first 2 are really a tutorial. World 2 just introduces the platforming and the rewind mechanic. World 3 has some fun with that, the magic green exception idea, but that's not really a simulation in that kind of Italo Calvino or Gendanken experiment way that Braid is really entranced by. Versus World 4 is like really the showcase of what games like Braid can do, and after showcasing itself in that way, it wants to open it up and say, hey, World 5 is another, just like World 4. It sucks, but it is another. And then World 6 as yet another exploration of, a different way that the world might work, that time could work. Yeah. So we'll put together this painting. We get a little bit more autobiographical detail in this painting. We have in blue here, of course, coming in from that wintry, cold exterior world, that kind of scary but nostalgic world of childhood, is this sort of angry-looking well, I mean, he doesn't look like anything. He's a smudge, but this father figure stepping into the room, and then down here we're constructing a bed where a childhood Tim, you see his face right here, his eyes peeking through the bedposts. Tim is all in his bed pretending to sleep. His kind of resenting the parental authority, coming and checking on what's going on in here. What's going on? You see there's a hand out the window here, another hand on the windowsill. This is the princess kind of slipping out the window. This is like a teen romance or a late night talk, and maybe his parents don't approve. So this is harkening back to that story about the oppression of living under the roof of the strange values. It's also we have some other kind of like childhood symbols. We've got this ball cap here, school backpack, a very old school computer. You'll see as soon as we leave this painting scene, there's a computer right here of a slightly more modern design, but still a little outdated as of 2008 when Braid was being developed. This is kind of a image of the past mirroring what the story is talking about. It's also notable that we have these flags here. These are like, I don't know, sports flags, prayer flags, whatever. They're just a room decoration. But these very same flags show up in the lair of the lair of that evil creature from World 3. We'll talk more about the symbolism of this creature in a moment. For now, I'll just hop into that world. And you see this background is looking very similar. It's the same kind of brownish thing. We've got the got the sports flags draping all over the room, along with some kind of suits of armor and things like that. But anyways, it's just kind of indicative that maybe this guy isn't totally a fantasy monster, but ties back. You'll see this in a lot of places. The objects of the fantasy worlds being built out of remembered things or little decorations around the house in the real world story. That's that for the painting. Of course, just like in the previous rooms, this kind of like office / storage zone mimics has items that reflect the theme of the world, namely the commingling of space and time. So we've got a treadmill here, right? So you can run in place on this thing, and hearkening to all those distance metaphors that if you're running at a set pace, then you go a certain number of miles in a certain number of minutes. The whole concept of velocity is based on that linear relationship between distance covered in a certain amount of time. And of course, the treadmill has that extra funny aspect where you're running, which normally would move you forward, but actually it's moving you nowhere, and you're just progressing forward in time, I suppose. And up here we have a little music box. I was commenting earlier about the musical notes representing the musical notes representing music, which is tied to our experience of time. But of course, whenever a musical notation is written down, it goes from left to right. On a music box, the musical notation is literally written on a little cylinder, which physically produces the music. So it's another example of space and time being intermingled. Some more poetic and less obvious ones. The computer here, right? So Braid is like, Jonathan Blow is an ace programmer, and he did all the code for Braid himself. Computer programs are executed line by line, right? You look at a program, you read it from top to bottom, and you try and understand, how the program is going to execute as you're writing it, going from each line down the row like a typewriter. And then finally up top here we have a bunch of storage boxes, right? and what's in these storage boxes, maybe they're just files, but this one, it has a teddy bear in it. In fact, maybe this same teddy bear as appears right here is all these items are packed up, and as one moves or just goes through life, you get these storage boxes. Maybe one is from college, one is the childhood items, one is the items from the last house. Each of these boxes is maybe full of items from a particular phase in Tim's life, and with the little yellow post-it labels on each one. So we have a box containing the mementos and all the memories of each year, another commingling of space and time. So that about wraps it up for perhaps the most beloved of Braid's worlds, unless people are going to make a case for the twist ending worlds. That is our episode at this time. I hope you're enjoying these. I hope you're enjoying the interspersed more now than ever. Oh, now we have 1 star. It looks so horrible there by its own. We'll be back soon. So enjoy Untangling Braid.